Okay, this is going to be our second example, and maybe pause the video and try to work this one out by yourself. What we have though is we have each interval here is going to be pi. Okay, so this right here will be 2 pi. This one's going to be 3 pi, and this is 4 pi, and so on. That's our scale. Okay, and it starts off the same thing. You have to determine A, B, and D. So when you look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The maximum is 5, and the minimum is -3. So when I subtract a negative number, that means I'm going to add. So I have 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So the amplitude is 4. 2 pi divided by the period. First you have to calculate what the period is. So the period, remember, is the distance between 2 maximums, 2 minimums, or 3 zeros. Okay? That's 5 pi. So the distance between this final point and this initial point, which is pi, okay, you just say the final minus the initial, and the period is 4 pi. Okay, so we have 2 pi divided by 4 pi, which reduces down to 1/2. That's your b value. That's what we're going to write into the equation. And on this we have 5 plus -3 divided by 2, and d is going to be 2 divided by 2, which equals 1. And remember, you can check this. So find the midline. This is saying that the middle of the graph should be at 1, which, if you draw a line, it is. Okay, so we've done D right. And if you look at A should be 4, so the distance from the maximum to the midline should be 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is. Okay, so that means that I can go ahead and fill in my equation here. So it's going to be 4 sine of 1/2, and then plus 1. And this one is going to be 4 cosine of 1/2 plus 1. Okay, and now I'm just going to pick one point. Okay, I'm going to write a positive sign equation. Okay, and this was yellow in my last graph, so I'm just going to pick this one over here. Okay, so I start on the midline for a sine graph, and I increase. This is a positive sine graph. So what that means, this 4 should stay positive, okay? And then I have x, and I have to figure out how much over this shifted. This is going to be negative pi. This is going to be -2 pi. So it shifted over 2 pi units, okay? And since we're on this side of the y-axis, that means that it's plus, because we're shifting the parent function to the left. So this would be my equation. This is not the only one you could write, but that's the one that I'm going to pick. And so I'm done with that part of the question. Now, if I want to write a negative cosine graph, okay, so I used pink last time, I can pick this point as my negative cosine graph. And the reason I knew to pick that one was because it is a minimum, okay? So since it's a minimum, I have to say, well, now it's negative cosine, okay? And then I'm going to say x, and it shifted over pi units, and I'm on the right side, so I'm going to say minus. So these two would be two possible equations out of many that we could write from this graph that we see.